people who are founders, they often get to a place where there's just hurdles and obstacles. They don't know who to hire. They lose energy. They're getting tired. And something that I've been able to do consistently is kinds of like come up with answers that aren't necessarily what the founder thinks the problem is. And also, most importantly, breathe life back into them.
This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, hosted by Krissy Vann. Together, we're uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. On this episode, we're joined by Debra Strougo, an entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in the fitness and wellness industry. Debra is the founder of Row House, a brand she scaled from a single studio to 300 locations through a strategic partnership with Xponential Fitness, culminating in a successful IPO in 2021. Now, through Fitizens Holdings, she advises early-stage growth companies, helping them reach target customers and build sustainable businesses. She is a founder's co-pilot. In this episode, we'll explore Debra's journey from founding and scaling Row House to guiding the fitness industry's future as an advisor and investor. We'll dive into her insights on industry trends, client experience, and the key lessons she's learned as a founder's co-pilot. Whether you're in the fitness industry or passionate about business growth, this conversation is packed with valuable takeaways. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes every Wednesday featuring industry thought leaders and influencers. Plus, each week we launch a new edition of This Week in Fitness, where we crunch the latest fitness business headlines all in under 5 minutes. I'm your host, Krissy Vann, and this is ATFW. I am so thrilled. Debra Strougo joining me. Debra, you and I have worked hard to unite this summer, so thank you so much for joining me on ATFW.
Thank you, Krissy. I've been really excited to get a podcast going with you ever since I saw you popping up all of the time in your hot pink outfit. And I just think it meets your personality so well. So I'm excited to have some fun today on your podcast.
Yeah, I love even we had an email exchange before we hopped on here and she asked, are you wearing the hot pink? And I kind of appreciate it in a way because even when I entered this space, I came from a really traditional media background. In fact, the time of women news anchors where you had to fight for the right to bare arms, like quite literally showing your arms on camera. So I kind of make a point in this space to do it my way. And luckily, I mean, if you can't express your own personality, why are you creating content in the first place, right?
I love it. I am always wearing a hot pink nail, and I was going to put on my hot pink shirt. It's just very hot today. And I think maybe at the next industry event, I'm going to show up in hot pink just so we can see each other from across the room.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that, Debra. And that's one of the things I appreciate so much about yourself. You're so heavily involved in this industry, an industry that you didn't actually start out in. And we're going to really dive into the founder's co-pilot because I absolutely love this pivot that you've taken. We don't need to dive into the whole story because people know you. I mean, 390% growth is what you did for Row House in 6 years, going from 1 to 300 locations, franchising, exiting successfully in 2021. You have this incredible repertoire, but maybe just give people a brief synopsis of why the fitness industry stole your heart in the first place.
Okay, yes. Well, I grew up in New York City. I now live in Newport Beach, which has tons of outdoor space and places to roam and be fit and active. But growing up, I did not. I went to a city school, and so I got involved in gym fitness. I've talked about this a lot on pods before. I had a boyfriend who basically challenged me to become a fitness instructor because I didn't like the fitness instructors anymore that were teaching my favorite step class. And I was very, very intimidated by the industry. I was intimidated by getting up on a stage. I was not kind of like the outward, outgoing, confident person that I do think of myself as today. So I became a fitness instructor based on this challenge. And I taught classes for all of the major gyms in Equinox and Crunch and, whatever. I traveled around. I was part of fitness videos and different media outlets and really kind of grew a lot of confidence in the space, but it was absolutely my side hustle. I was doing a digital publishing type of career on, during the day. I got into New York City tourism, my best experience of my life, working for New York City under Bloomberg and helping to really promote the brand of New York to people worldwide. And I just was like, I want to grow a brand in fitness because I want to work in fitness. I want this to be my life, bring my life's passion to my work together. And so ultimately, that's kind of what brought me to growing Row House out of New York. It was boutique was hitting its heyday. Really good branded boutique was popping up. So value proposition was where it was at, understanding your customer, really figuring out how to dial up a used group, how to know them for the entire life cycle, how to bring them in based on a promise, keep them based on a promise, convert them based on an experience. That was all kind of like what was happening out of that New York City scene. And I understood that based on brands, and I understood it based on programming because I understood the minds of the fitness goer and all of these people who had taken my classes for years. So it was kind of the perfect melding of things that actually in New York City tourism, the mayor ends and people are like, okay, what are we going to do? We're kind of private, but we're public. And so we're like on the cycle of government. And it was the perfect timing to go ahead and jump into growing a brand in the fitness space and helping get more people fit and active.
And I know that remains a huge pillar, which is why you do what you do. Before we dive into this whole concept of Founders Co-Pilot, I do have to know, did you ever keep in touch with that boyfriend? Does he know that set you on this really successful trajectory?
I did mention it a little bit ago, and I don't know. We will have to circle back. I'll find out. When I see next hot pink, I'll let you know.
Right? Because I'm just like, people are a reason, a season, or forever. And I'm like, that person's one challenge quite literally changed your whole life. I love stories like that. But your whole mission now is really changing other people's lives. And this is an industry that you're still so excited about for that reason. You're like, how do we get more people moving? We know the fitness industry is a tremendous destination to do so, but it's not going to happen without new ideas, innovation, and really speaking to that 80% population that isn't walking in the door. So how do you define being a founder's co-pilot? What is the mission here?
Yeah, and if you don't mind me saying, so I was just actually on a call with a group. I'm moderating a session at an upcoming industry event. And what you just said was, people come in, and also recent season, or I say lifetime, you're saying forever. I love it. But so people come into the industry for something. And we were talking about this on the earlier call. They come into the industry for something and maybe they boomerang out, or maybe they stay for something else. Right. And so that's really interesting to me. And I feel like maybe a decade ago or even 2 decades ago, people were coming in because their friend said, oh, you should go work out there. It's going to help you lose 10 pounds. It's going to help you look better for a wedding or something like that. What's happening now is people are coming in for a variety of different things and they're learning about it in a variety of different ways, but there's still a huge education gap, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess that's what I'm really passionate about is like people coming in, learning. Maybe it's a good experience. Maybe it's a good piece of athletic gear that they wore and now they want to go give it a try. Maybe they're Aura or they have a wearable that told them to go do something. Maybe they decided to have, an IV drip or something like this. But usually it's because of convenience or a friend or something like that. And again, that education gap isn't necessarily there. So what's so interesting is how do we keep them in the fold and grow and grow and grow from wherever they come in starting from. So with regards to the Founders Co-Pilot thing, I just have found so many amazing founders that have businesses, successful businesses. They're solving legit problems for people, and they've started a journey much like I did, and they've gone along the way and they're at the point of no return. They may be funded, may not be funded yet, but they're making money, right? And they're looking to grow their organizations or substantially, established businesses looking to go into new territories, new markets, go from B2B to B2C. So that's kind of what I've been doing is like getting involved in these companies and helping just springboard them to the next level.
Is there a particular subset in the fitness industry that you have found reaching out to you, or do you cover the gamut in regards to whether it be boutique or somebody looking to do an HVLP or even in the wellness space?
I have found that a lot of people I've worked with, we've gotten to know each other over the course of years. So, LinkedIn guys, if anybody's watching and questioning their LinkedIn game, it is a great place to really, really nurture relationships over duration of time. And I'm not a good LinkedIn sharer, to be honest with you, but
we're going to give you some content today. So
yes, thank you for that. I think a lot of people who have come to me just have seen that I got involved in something rowing. Listen, I was not a rower, and we educated the marketplace on rowing. And we created a brand that was like sexy and appealing. It was actually not a sexy brand, let's be honest. I knew my values, though. I knew my core values. I knew who my target market was going to be, and I established product market fit and watched that client, got to know that client, really understood the client over the course of time, listened hard, believed in kind of what we were pushing forward, and made sure we were attracting the right audience without pivoting, and found the data to track it and continue to track it, and figured out the pricing and all of that based on like who we were serving. So the value proposition that was there, the clientele was there. And I think that people who've gotten to know my story understood all the work that took to really, really kind of think through building a brand into a successful business. And for those people, I think those are some of the people that have come, for help. And then obviously I had an exit through Xponential, and there was some scale there and different things that happens there. And, people have seen that as well. And I had gone back in and kind of like helped the brands kind of get back on track when it made some people who are founders. They often get to a place where there's just hurdles and obstacles. They don't know who to hire. They lose energy. They're getting tired. And something that I've been able to do consistently is kind of like come up with answers that aren't necessarily what the founder thinks the problem is. And also, most importantly, breathe life back into them and just make them feel like they have somebody to help like work through that understands what they're going through. So it's been a mix of a couple of different things, Krissy, a couple of different types of businesses.
What are some of the most common problems that you find founders run into over and over again?
Lack of sales process, definitely. I think it's been an ongoing issue in our industry. Gym sales process is very different than boutique sales process. When you go into boutique sales process, you had, the soul cycle hands-off sales process forever. The gym, like, pull you by your throat and grab you in and close the door and don't let you out until you buy sales process. There are just so many different sales processes and a lot of hiring based on, well, that person's with this brand, so they must know. And maybe that's a brand, in boutique, for example, where it kind of sells itself. So that's another thing, right? What's the education required in the sales process? Is there education required in the sales process? I love the IV drip space, but there's a lot of, how's it going to make me feel? A ton of objection handling that needs to happen in the sales process and top down from the brand's valuation, value proposition. So I think sales process is a big place. I think another big place is team, just questions and team. Is this person the right person? Is it the wrong person? And then it goes to like, well, who is their support? Who are their supporting team members? They might be great if they have the right interactions with supporting team members. And by the way, how are they incentivized? Are they incentivized against what you need them to be doing? Or are you paying them too much, by the way? And so they're not like hustling, but you need them to hustle, all of that. And then another thing within team that I see a lot is just understanding foundational brands. Like if people aren't aligned, if they don't really truly understand where you're going and what you're trying to do, it will be hard for them to want to do the work, but to do it well and to know what they should, bring to you and what they should continue to chart forward and all that. So kind of the training of the team as well. So those are two things, I think: sales process, team. I mean, I could keep going, Krissy.
Well, no, but it's because you've lived this as well and learned so many lessons along the way. So kind of on the other side of that coin of that, I approach that being like, what do people come to you being like, I don't know what to do next. But for yourself, what are the big learnings and hiccups that you had in the row house journey that you kind of make a point of instilling as a founder's co-pilot so people don't make the same mistake?
Oh, I love that one. So something that I did was I was extremely resourceful. I'm like you, right? Just like an extremely resourceful person. Know people, know who to go to, know to ask what questions, and have no fear asking a question, right? Because there's no bad question. It's just a learning experience. And I will always return a favor. You know what I mean? So I'm not concerned about that. However, so I asked a lot of questions to a lot of people, and I never created a formal advisory board. I just didn't do it. And what I learned through the years is that without a formal advisory board, I didn't really have accountability. Also, keep in mind, I didn't have investors for a very large portion of my business's growth. So you don't really have accountability other than to yourself, right? And so I think that formulating an advisory board with a set cadence of communication is really, really, really helpful, because going back to being resourceful and talking to a lot of people, asking a lot of questions, well, that's fine, but then nothing's coming really back to you to keep you holding accountable from these advisors. And, they'll talk to you a year later. So how did that ever go? And you're like, oh, did I say I was going to do that a year ago?
Like that old thing.
So that's one thing that I think is really, really great takeaway for people growing businesses is like, make sure you have, a formal advisory board group, because by the way, you don't have to pay for it. People are willing and excited to help you in your journey. Probably you're going to offer them something, some sort of, equity or in your company. But it's not going to be cash outright. So it's a great way to get really, really, really good help and experience as you grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's making that ultimate investment in yourself, because at the end of the day, I kind of equate it to the same as like the best friendships we can have in life are the ones that are willing to say to your face where your blind spots are. They are the most helpful friendships in life. Yeah. And you're basically taking that same philosophy and applying it to the business perspective. Where are my blind spots? Because at the end of the day, one individual, as much as we would love to think that we are the brain that is the Swiss Army knife of all of the things, you're going to miss some things sometimes. And the accountability piece as well being so important, because as a founder, I'm sure you work with people time and time again where they are stretched in 50 million directions at any given time. Plus the natural, I know that we are in the business of prioritizing our health and wellness, but there can be stressors, anxieties. You're solving new problems every day that crop up. And that can really cause a little bit of a divot on our accountability sometimes when something new is all of a sudden stealing your attention. So that is a fabulous takeaway. You're obviously not just dealing, though, with founders in the startups of their journey. You're having a lot of people that want to put the pedal to the metal and do that growth trajectory. And as I highlighted off the hop here, 1 to 306 years. I'm just going to say it. It's pretty fucking impressive. So for those that are looking to scale up their businesses, kind of the same question here. What were your biggest learnings through that process? Because as we teed it up here, this was not your background. This was not your industry. You learned everything from the ground up to be able to accomplish that very impressive statistic.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the thing is, listen, you really have to manage your data right from the beginning. Like you really have to follow your stats. And I ironically, when I was in digital publishing back at the beginning of like digital content, I represented the artists that were doing comic strips and content. So Snoopy and Dilbert and
that's cool.
Yeah, it was. Yes. And so my schooling, like straight out of college, was this is the chart and this is the month and this is the property that is, in the newspapers worldwide or in actually online, comics.com, Dilbert.com, Snoopy.com. And this is when they performed and this is when they didn't perform. And so I really, it was like a web analytics role. And, I think in the digital space, we're doing so much of this with content now, but the fitness industry kind of didn't grow up this way. And so we're like looking really, so what happens on that day? Why was readership high? Oh, it was Memorial Day. Everybody was home. Nobody was at work. Or you track it back to the content. Like what happens in the content that day? oh, it was a really funny one. It must have gone viral, something like that. And report back to the artists. People really loved what you had to say that day with whatever. Or your performance is going like downhill. Bring it back up. What are we doing here? So, I think that that's something that I looked when I got into fitness industry to set up for success moving forward. I think a lot of the really good players that are out there have done that. They've gotten, again, really close to understanding on the floor of their local communities. If we're talking brick and mortar, why are people coming in? What's happening? I mean, we used to have Listen 360 reviews. That's, one of these vendor plugins to the CRM systems, MMSs. And it would tell you, like, somebody said the toilets, the bathrooms are always dirty, and you better fix that. And that's an issue that, like, if you're not paying attention to your business, your bathroom's being dirty or the room smelling or the person next to you smelling, like, is more important than the fact that the music was screechy and the mic wasn't working, which is also an issue, right? So you have programming issues, you have pricing issues, you have facility issues, you have community issues, you have whether people were friendly or not. If there was, in New York City, like if there was a homeless person always sitting in front of the, like so many things. So that's really, I think, where a lot of this stuff comes from, is really figuring out on a day-to-day basis what's working and then building it up into a model to the top.
When people come to work with you, what's your process in getting to know their business and really how you start to understand where you should sink your teeth into and be the best guide or co-pilot in this case?
So, I mean, listen, oldie but goodie, SWOT analysis, right? What are the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities of threats in your business right now? Like, what is going on? What is your problem? I had a group that came, they were about to do an owner summit, amazing business owners, Hydrate IV girls out of Denver and Arizona. And they were about to do an owner summit and they just needed some help. And we just got very quickly down to the bottom of like where I could help them kind of position some of the things, what's going on with their business in preparation for the summit, which would really be their strategy for the year to come. So we ended up kind of pulling together a strategy for the year to come and then figuring out from there where it makes sense to work together in the future. And to stay involved. And I like to stay involved in long-term success of businesses. I don't like to go in as kind of like a consultant. And I really like to work with people that I like and have good energy with, right? We have great energy, finds other people you have great energy with, and it's really enjoyable work and you add a lot of value. So that's normally kind of how I get, in essence, called in. There's a problem, there's something that can't be solved. We don't know exactly where to turn. We're losing energy. We're having doubt in our ability to make decisions. And then it's kind of a conversation of, can we come together? Can I add value? And I mean, so that's an approach of, we need help now. How can we solve it? How can we figure out a way to work together and keep moving? There have been also been companies that have come to that are just growing, and you look under the hood and realize that they're kind of hitting a stumbling block because of the team or because they don't really understand, how to grow the brands beyond keeping it, kind of tight. And so we'll do a little bit more brand work, like who is your target market that you're trying to reach? What's the founder story? Why did we come together here? And kind of get that all trued up so that we could expand really well and align to bring all of the right stakeholders in and programs and initiatives in from the bottom. I love doing that type of a thing as well. So yeah, those are two examples. There's one more. The other example is a great company I'm working with right now from Australia coming into market that needs network and connections. And, I've spent a lot of time in this industry. I know a fair amount of people. And so I can really kind of help them take some shortcuts, get into the market, meet the people that they want to meet.
And on that kind of note, yes, this is your business and what you're doing now, but also I'm sure you have had a lot of mentors along the way, especially through some of these big pivot steps that you've had in your career journey. So who have some of those been for you, and what were kind of the big lessons that were imparted on you that you're still grateful for through this day?
So the mentors that come to mind at the moment all came from when I was with New York City Tourism and Marketing. And it was just, we represented New York City, which is arguably one of the best brands in the world, to the world. And we found ways to get international tourists to get excited and to come in, domestic and local tourists. And the passion there was so large. It's like the passion in this industry, right? I've taken my passion. And by the way, that's why I landed there. I was like, I can't figure out what to do in the fitness space. I love New York City. I'm a born and bred New Yorker. I might as well work for these guys. But it's like the passion was so ridiculously strong to see things through that it just created such an amazing network of people that were there enjoying what they did every day. So that's one thing. You know, I think I really kind of learned from my mentors, like, if you're gonna work this hard, you better really enjoy what you're doing. But I also really understood how to think of, you know, value proposition and client targeting and communications at different levels within one overarching brand, which is huge for a franchisor or, you know, anybody with like a big brand's message that's trying to speak across the country to different markets within, which is something that I think, you know, as I saw Row House, you know, go into Xponential and all the Xponential brands, and we saw like, this isn't just your New York City client. Like, how do you appeal also to these other markets? How do you make sure your communication is strong enough to appeal and kind of pulled and dialed that back in? That's something, that mindset is something that I really, really, really learned from that group. So I'm so appreciative of that. There was a mentor there as well on the family life balance side, that two of them that, you know, kind of made this comment about how life is a marathon, not a sprint. Let's leave it at that. But essentially,
well, yeah, because you're a busy mom, right? Yeah. On top of all of this. So I'm like, I just pause you there to highlight it, because I do think, especially in these conversations, that is so important to say, because at the end of the day, all these tremendous levels of success require a serious amount of work, but you are balancing this entire personal life and your heart and soul on the other side. And that's just the reality.
Yeah. And my own wellness, right? So
Yes.
we like to actually live the part of the industry we represent. But it takes time. It takes time. So yeah, it's like, give grace to yourself, make sure you find time for yourself. Don't feel guilty about finding time, all of that, because it is a marathon, not a sprint. So I was I just hold true very much to that message. Yeah.
Well, it's like having your own value proposition to self of like, I promise I'm going to treat you in this way. And at the end of the day, it allows you to keep going and expand and excel. When it comes to the fitness industry itself, obviously you're on the pulse. I mean, you're talking about some of the IV therapies that are on taps, and you're very in the know of what's up and coming. So what spaces in the fitness industry right now are really exciting you? I mean, we often talk about trends, but I'm like, maybe there's something on the horizon that isn't getting as much attention, but is burning a little bit of excitement within yourself.
I mean, personally, and I'm not really working in it, but the world of like vibration therapy is really interesting. I've experienced enough of it at this point. I'm a big fan of the power plate, actually. Those types of worlds. Yeah. And the other thing, and on the women's wellness side. So like, once a founder, always a founder. I'm going to go back a second to come forward to this question again, Krissy, because it makes me think of the earlier question of, you know, what did some of your mentors say? And it always stuck with me that truly, once a founder, always a founder. Like, if you're wired this way, you're going to kind of, but I got to a point where I was like, no, I want to help other people do their own things. And then I'm getting the itch again. And so I think that there's a brand that I want to launch actually in the women's wellness.
Exciting.
Hopefully everyone will keep track on that. And
like, any hints? Come on.
I know. Hopefully, like, if I'm saying it, I'm actually going to do it within a year, but I've been working on it on the side. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in that space for a couple of reasons, right? Like, and I've been involved, you know, with companies recently really starting to understand more from the female standpoint, the female wellness user standpoint, on what's going on through the life cycle, right? And it used to be that like 9 months ago, nobody, you know, people would tell me like, I don't really want to talk about women and their hormonal changes and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, now people are realizing you have to, because that's where you really are differentiated and you're really helping users. And by the way, there's not only two, there's like multitudes of millions of users that have these same problems. And so I think as an industry, we're getting more willing to speak about what is actually, being experienced by some of our consumers. And we're no longer doing the whole marketing advertising of, you'll have great abs. Like, obviously we know that. We've gone a long way from that. And so now these brands that are popping up in the space that are actually solving like real problems of what people are experiencing through their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s onward is, I think, really interesting. And for the men too. But it is a biological difference is the aspect I'm coming at it from more. I was listening to some podcasts where it's like vulva owners versus penis owners, so I'm looking at it more from a female hormonal biological standpoint than a non.
Well, and it's such a smart space to play in, because I even think from the social media side, I mean, growing up, it's like, as a woman, you get a period, everything, you're like shy and you don't want to talk about it and say it out loud. Now I'm seeing content creators after content creators talking about how it impacts their workout and being very open and candid throughout their life cycle or the cycle. And then same thing on the other side, perimenopause. How is that changing my workouts? Pelvic floor obviously has been finally a topic of conversation out loud. I'm like, these things are happening for your consumers. And when we look from the intersection of fitness spaces and healthcare spaces, sadly, I mean, I'm coming from the Canadian perspective, so I can't speak to the American healthcare system, but I do know we as women have been incredibly underfunded in our own systems. A lot of the medications we take aren't even necessarily in the studies done on both groups. So I'm just kind of like, yes, Debra, I'm very excited for wherever you're going with this, because this is a space that has been completely neglected for a very long time. And certainly there's players in the industry, but the momentum, you can feel that hook and shift happening. So
100%.
You're going to have to tell me first when this is launching.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can do something again. I mean, listen, on a very granular standpoint, like from a very granular standpoint level, the people want to see themselves in your brands, right? And they want to believe that they belong to your brands. And so when people came in, when I was teaching group fitness, and the women would come up to me and say, like, can I work out during my period? Like, they want to feel welcome that they can be there. And that question happens. I mean, it happens all of the time, right? And so that's, I think, the thing of what we're starting to see more of. Like in yoga, I've taken thousands of classes of so many different modalities over the years. And like, there's a studio that I go to now where they say consistently every time when you go into like shoulder stands, women, if you're on your moon cycle, don't do shoulder stands. And how many places wouldn't say that? And how many, or it would feel weird to say it? Women, if you're menstruating, like if you're on your moon cycle, what's the right messaging? It sounds a little weird. It's a little inappropriate. Does it really matter if you are, I mean, I don't know. So that's where it's interesting. It's like people just want to know that you're actually there for them and that they're not in the wrong place. So if you're looking to build evangelists, you have to understand your customer and what matters to them and be willing to talk about it.
Yeah, I am, as I say, I mean, just based on me researching into your background, and I tend to get a little creepy on the internet before I have somebody on here because I'm like, I want to know everything about you. I have no doubt that you're going to make this a reality, and you'll more than likely make it the reality within the year. So excited to watch that for you.
Appreciate it.
As we round out the conversation, of course, you and I kind of met initially because you were taking part on top of you're not busy at all with family and this and that and businesses, but you actually carve out the time and space to also advocate for this industry and really elevating the message that these spaces are social health, mental health, physical health. Obviously, from the American perspective, you have put your voice behind the FIT Act and bringing that into the halls of Capitol Hill. Why is it so important for you to carve out the time to elevate this message?
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. So having the experience in New York City tourism and government and understanding kind of how economic impact works and all of that, I knew that as an industry, we could have a seat at the table if we earned a seat at the table. And I recognized that there was kind of a brand disconnect between how government was seeing us as an industry and how we should have been seen, right? And so that's kind of what brought me to Rise, I think, and want to help kind of the disconnect. And it was in two regards, right? There was a disconnect between kind of like the gym side of the industry and some of the new growth. I think a lot of the new growth, the, people coming from private sector jobs to launch, community studios and in mind body wellness and all of that coming together, that wasn't necessarily being seen. And then the other thing, was definitely just the notion that like the fitness industry wasn't about buff arms and, nice legs. It was about mental health, emotional health, and physical health, right? And so that was kind of like this relaunch post kind of COVID where I got very involved in the relaunch and the advocacy work that was being done at the DC level and went down there and realized, furthermore, Congress thinks that there's parks and there's places to walk and there's athletic centers, community centers, and there's pools, and people should just go out and get involved in those types of things. And the truth is, as an industry, we know people don't have the programming to know how to really do something that their body will necessarily even sustain them for, right? If they're overweight and they start running, before you know it, they have ankle, issues galore or foot issues, whatever. And they also certainly don't have the accountability, right? So we're like in the business of motivation. We're here to prescribe a program that can stick and help. And, certainly like the gyms and studios and all that provide accountability. And that's why we charge memberships and get people on packages. So without all of that knowledge being, parlayed into kind of the people who are making the decisions on our behalf, they just think everybody should go out and go walking, and it's just not going to work. So I just wanted to kind of come and help bridge the gap. And it's given me a wonderful community. I really, really understand kind of the lay of the lands of the industry and who the main players are, and have gotten to know so many of them and call them my friends. So I've considered it a lot of fun. But, hopefully we're doing good work, and there's a lot of people on the Health and Fitness Association task forces that are doing much, much more than me. And anybody out there who's looking to support the industry should really go to the Health and Fitness Association website and make sure to support, formerly called IHRSA, just in case there's any confusion there. Make sure to be a member and to support the cause, because, ultimately that is how we grow populational health.
Absolutely. And I mean, from my side of the border here as well, there's advocacy work taking place for a pesky tax line that they won't change from ineligible to eligible, so that we could kind of mirror and do the same thing. And so I think even globally as an industry, to your point where you're like, I have this company from Australia and this, that, and the other. I'm like, the more that we are emphasizing this and giving that same message, eventually, hopefully it makes it across the finish line, because at the end of the day, it was more of a competitive mindset, it seemed, versus collaborative. And it's been really fascinating entering the space myself and seeing that collaboration happening in real time. And on that note, as we end the conversation here, I always like to leave people with a little nugget to fuel their day. So from yourself, as the founder's co-pilot, what would be the overarching message that you want to make sure that people that are looking to grow their business, or maybe they're that individual you're speaking to that's like, I'm tired and I'm putting everything into it, what is the pep talk that they get from you?
I mean, I pretty much just tell people like, I'm here to help you out and breathe some life back into you, because it is a marathon and not a sprint, but you need your support network along the way, right? So yes, that's it. I just like to help. Like, I'm happy to
love it though. No one does it alone.
Yeah, don't do it alone.
Obviously, I'm sure you piqued some people's interest here. So how can they connect and find you?
Oh, I'm a LinkedIn girl. I do have a website, FitizensHoldings.com, where I'm reachable. But yes, and I hope, Krissy, to see you at some of the upcoming industry events and trade shows, because you're such a great inspiration and such a great industry energy. And yeah, so hopefully we all just like throw a party together and hang out.
Right. I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. Well, thank you so much for carving out the time. I know that you have tons on the go, so I really, really appreciate it. And I'll make sure to have all your contact details in the show notes as well.
Thank you.